Hi there. Welcome to Lesson 2 in the Learning C# video tutorials here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about some basic variable types. First, we'll start off, what is a variable? Basically, a variable is a container in memory for your program to store data. If you think of it another way, say you're moving and you have boxes to fill with your household goods. Some boxes get pictures, some get clothes, others get dishes. You decide what type of things or data that particular box will hold. You write on the box what type of things are in there, so you know what to expect when you open that box later. So you don't have a box labeled dishes and there's clothes in it. One thing that you won't do when you're moving is that you have to do while you're programming is you have to give the box a particular name. And you name the box or your variables so you can access them or work with them in your actual code. So how do we declare a variable? How do we even get one created within our code? Well, in C#, this line is called a variable declaration. The proper syntax would be something similar to dishes, which would be the sorry about that, dishes, my box of dishes. Dishes would be the type of stuff that can go into that box, and my box of dishes would be the name of that particular variable. Now remember, the box is the variable space in memory, so we don't have to say box in our declaration there. Clear as mud? Don't worry, it gets easier when you see it than just to talk about it. So let's move on to the types of variables that we're going to talk about. The first one we're going to talk about is string. We've already worked with string a little bit in our Hello World program. Like we saw before, a string variable can hold a string of characters from zero or more characters enclosed in double quotes. An example of that would be the welcome to C# programming statement there. It's enclosed. It's in double quotes there. That is considered a string. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be as long as you want it. It could, like I said, it could be 0 characters long. It could just be an empty string. So to declare a variable of type string, it looks something like this. You'll have string, myString. The first part, string, is the actual variable type, and the second, myString part, is the name you give the variable. The name can pretty much be anything you want for the most part. There are things you can't do, but we won't get into those just yet. There's a lot more to strings. Some is beyond the scope of this particular tutorial, and some we'll get into later lessons. String is actually fairly large. So right now, let's go ahead and open up our Hello World program and modify it so we declare a string type variable and populate it or instantiate it with some text. Alright. Now that we have our program back open here, let's go ahead and modify it here a little bit so we can declare that string variable and use it in the write line function here and display the text that way. So first of all, we'll go ahead and do string, and we'll just call this myString. And we can end it right there. That there is a variable declaration. We've declared it. The program knows about it. We can't use it yet because we haven't given it a value. We haven't instantiated it yet. You can do it on a separate line. You could do myString equals welcome to C# programming. You could do it like that. Or what I like to do in this particular case here is you can do it in the same line. You can do string myString equals and then what you want to actually set its value to. Welcome to C# programming. Both ways are completely legitimate. It's entirely up to you. Sometimes you have to declare variables before you use them because you don't know what their value is going to be ahead of time, and that again is something that's going to be in future lessons. So how do we use this? Well, pretty much similar how we did it before. We'll just go ahead and replace this particular text here with our variable. We'll just type in myString. So now what we're doing is we have the variable declared here, and we're going to give that variable with which the value of welcome to C# programming, we're going to give it to this right line method here, and let's see what happens. Go ahead and run your program. Just go and press F5, and we get the exact same output as we did prior. Press enter, close the program. That's basic variable declaration and instantiation, and using it there with that particular method. Let's go back to our slide now. Alright, the next variable type that we're going to talk about here is the integer. Integer is a variable type that can hold whole numbers only in the range of -2,147,483,648 to positive 2,147,483,647. Most of the time you will probably use int or integer to store whole numbers. There are other types that store numbers as well, but we'll get into those in later lessons. For now, we'll just focus on just the basic int. Declaring a variable of type int is pretty much the same as string, and for the most part, all variable declarations are similar. The syntax for this declaration is int and myInt, similar to the string, where you had the string was the type and you had the name of your actual variable. So now let's go back into our program and see if we can put this to use here. So we'll have the developmental environment opened up here, and we have our existing code. We can just all leave that there, and we'll just do a new line, and we'll just do like we had in the slide there. We'll do int myInt, and again, before we can just call that good, put a semicolon there that's declared. But let's go ahead and set it to a value. Let's set it to just the value of 10 or some arbitrary number, doesn't really matter. And then we can go ahead and put myInt in the right line here, and we can run that, and we'll see 10 is displayed. Now, like I said before, int can only store a certain range of numbers. Let's go ahead and try to put a bigger number in there than we're supposed to. Let's see here, 2,147,000,000. Was it 483,648 will be one too big for this particular number. And right there it says, there's the error message, cannot implicitly convert type uint to int. An explicit conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? What it's saying there is, hey, this number is too big. It needs to be in a different type that can hold a bigger number. So the program won't even let you run it. So we'll back up to 47. And now we don't have any error message. If we did that on the negative side, we would get the exact same error. Should. Maybe not. I figured we'd probably get the same message. Oh, I think maybe I got the number in there wrong. Let's take a look here. 147, 43, 648. Well, it can hold 648, so we need to go to 649. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Same situation there. And as you can see, storing a number is pretty straightforward. Doesn't matter which number you have in there. It all works out the same. Like I said before, there are other types that can store numbers. Just to name off a few. There's the uint, which you just saw, which can store bigger numbers. There's the double. There's a floating point. There's decimal. And again, we'll get into those later on. Let's go back to the slideshow here, and the next type we're going to be talking about is Boolean. Boolean. Wow, that certainly is a funny word. And basically, what Boolean means is true or false. And I had to look this up too. I didn't know where Boolean got its name from. Why did they choose Boolean? Well, quick history lesson here. A mathematician by the name of George Boole came up with the idea of using logic in math. Back sometime in 1847 or something like that, he had the idea, and since his last name is Boole, that's how they got Boolean. So Boolean type variables can hold one of two possibilities, that being true or false, 1 or 0, basically on or off. You might be thinking to yourself, well, that can't be very useful. And you would be correct. By itself, this would be absolutely useless. Boolean is used more for checking or comparing. Now, there are other types of Boolean checks, but in this case here, when we're just comparing true or false, but it by itself, you have to use something else to use it as a check. Think of it this way. Let's go back to the packing of the boxes for moving. As you're filling up your box with stuff, you keep asking yourself, can I get more in this box? You answer to yourself, yes or no, true or false. That's basically how it's used. It's kind of an if statement. The statement in C# would be asked like, if box is full, stop filling, else keep filling. With that in mind there, that brings up another statement that I'm going to demonstrate for you too, is a simple if statement. And we haven't talked about this yet, and we will, but for right now I'll just show you the syntax for a simple if statement so we can use Boolean more effectively in our code samples here. Okay, back into our code file here. Let's go ahead and take a look at declaring a Boolean type variable and a simple if statement. So there are two different ways you can do bool or Boolean. You have the Boolean type, and you have just the bool. Either one is the same in the simple form, but from now we're just going to use Boolean. We'll call it my bool, and we're going to set that equal to false. You can set it equal to true, doesn't matter. And again, pretty straightforward. All variable declarations are very similar. It's just the types change, the names of your variables are obviously going to change, and what values that they can hold. Now, just you might see this these little green squiggly lines underneath the names of your variables. Those aren't error messages at all. It's just it's the environment letting you know that, say, hey, you've declared this variable. You've given it a value, but you aren't using it. As you can see, the myInt doesn't have that green squiggly line underneath of it. That's because we're using it right down here. Okay, so for a basic if statement, we'll do if my bool is equal to false, curly brace, else, curly brace. So what this says here is if my bool is equal to false, then do what's here. Else, if it's not false, do what's here. So let's just take a look how we can do that. Let's write something out to the console. System.console.writeLine. We'll do value is false, and then down here we'll do value is true. And we'll take this line out of here. We'll leave our pause line there, and let's go ahead and run this. And we get value is false. So basically, when the code ran, these values were declared, instantiated, then it gets to the if my bool, which is this variable here, is equal to false, which it is, do this. So if we go ahead and again set that to true, we'll get the other code here executed. So if statements and Booleans can somewhat go together. They do go together. There are other things you can do too with if statements, and like I said, we're not going to get into the if statement now. Just kind of wanted to demonstrate to you how Boolean values work within an if statement. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about here is code commenting. Commenting your code is one of the most important things you can do as a programmer. When you comment your code, you're basically documenting what that piece or section of code is doing. You're not only going to benefit yourself, but if someone else comes along and needs to modify the code, it'll help them understand what's going on. For example, programmer A might have one way of accomplishing a certain task in a program, and programmer B might use another way. But if you comment your code, In either case, both programmers will be able to understand it if you give detailed instructions on, okay, this section here, this block of code, or this particular formula, or this equation, or this if statement, or this declaration, this particular variable is used for this. If you tell document what you're doing, it's far easier to understand what's going on if you have to come back later on in the future and go back and modify that code. You might be asking yourself, well, what if I'm the only programmer? Well, imagine this. Say you create a program that's fairly complex that has, say, 100,000 plus lines of code. 6 months after completion, a user comes to you and asks for a small change to a particular part or piece. If you comment your code well enough, you can just open it back up, find out what needs to be changed, and go ahead and make that change and get it back into production. But if you don't code it, if you don't comment it, and you spend a majority of your time trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is going on here? I got to figure out again how this works, so I can make that change. It's kind of counterproductive. So the better you comment your code, the better you are when you have to come back to your code. At the time of when you're writing your code, commenting, it's easy to not do it, or just do it a little bit. It's okay, just one line, say, hey, this is this, because at the time it makes sense to you. But you just got to kind of keep in the back of your mind, okay, is this going to make sense to me 6 months, 12 months from now? So let's take a look at our code and see how comments are actually done. Okay, comments are done two ways. There's a single line comment and there's a multi-line comment. Single line comment uses 2 forward slashes, and it turns the text green to let you know this is a comment. This is a single line comment, and then you have a multi-line comment, which again is a forward slash, a star, star, forward slash. And multi-line comments are, this is a multi-line comment. When you press enter, the stars keep being added, so you can add a very descriptive paragraph if you need to. This is more of the same comment. And pretty much how you can do this, the comments can go anywhere in the code other than within a statement. So you can't put a comment right here, and call it good. But you can put them at the end of, like, here. Okay, this is my string variable. This is my int variable. This is my Boolean variable. And then for like this one here, we could do this simple if statement. Checks to see if the my bool variable is true or false. And then here you can be, value was true, value was false. So it's pretty straightforward to comment, and like I said, you can't over comment a program, in my opinion. The more documentation, the better. And like I said, that's my opinion, and I believe a lot of other people out there will agree with me when you say over commenting can't be done. So other than that there, let's go back and take a look at our slide. Alright, we'll go ahead and wrap this lesson up here for today. Just go ahead and continue to practice and work with what we talked about today. And I know what we've covered so far isn't too exciting, but we need to build a solid foundation in order to keep moving forward. We can do simple things, just try starting a new project and duplicating what we did without, referencing the video or your notes. Use what we have and just try to create something. Use the tools you have and that we've learned about, and see what you can come up with there. When it comes to programming, it's practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. What's to come in lesson 3? We're going to be talking about method declaration. We're going to talk about the main method. We're going to create our own methods, and within our programs we'll call them to be able to use them. We'll talk more about the if statements. We're going to break down a program. When we make a brand new program, you have all that pre-populated code in there. We're going to break that down and see what all that is actually doing. And then to finish up that lesson there, we're going to build a small program that will call one of 2 methods we create based on the outcome of an if statement there. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and we look forward to seeing you in lesson 3.